It's the ESCtips.com Melodifestivalen podcast, bringing you unrivaled coverage of Eurovision's premier selection show.
If you love Schlager, bad pronunciation and all things Swedish, stay tuned to ESCtips.com.
Welcome, bienvenue, willkommen, bienvenido, velkommen, benvenuti, tervetuloa, benvindo. And if you're from Denmark, just because you've won on the last two occasions Sweden hosted Eurovision, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed to this year. Particularly not if you saw Melody Grand Prix. Welcome to the final ESCtips.com Melodifestivalen podcast of 2016. My name is Andy Redburn, at ScandyAndy on Twitter, and I have with me three very special guests. First up, we have the owner and main writer of ESC Tips. He basically makes a significant sum of money every year betting on the outcome of Eurovision and who will do well and who will do less well. At the moment, I think he's got more doing less well than succeeding. It is Gavin Lambert, the Gabster. Welcome.
Hello, Andy. How are you?
Fine. I finished work approximately 10 minutes ago, so I've really concentrated on this show a lot, obviously. And how are you in the sunny West Midlands?
Not so sunny today, but finally we've had a semi-decent song drop for Eurovision from Croatia, so it's always good to hear some quality, given what we've been served over the last few weeks.
Yes, it is kind of a festival of mediocrity so far. Next up, we have a regular guest and a good friend of ESCtips.com. He has commentated for the television service of Yle in 2 languages. He has also worked behind the scenes on a Eurovision-related travel quiz show called På Resande Not. If you ever get the chance to check it out, do so because it's excellent. And also he blogs about every Eurovision song ever recorded at allaeurovisionsbidrag.blogspot.com. It is from Helsinki, Tobias Larsson. Welcome, Tobias.
Well, thank you. Greetings from actually quite occasionally sunny Helsinki today. We haven't seen the sun for ages and ages, and now, thanks to a little bit of sunshine, everything feels possible and hopeful, which feels quite good. It sort of ties in with the subject of this, with the Melodifestivalen final, which is sunny and hopeful as well, isn't it?
Well, quite. And as we all know, the Finnish people are full of positivity and hope.
Always.
Exactly. And our final guest, another regular. He had a crisis at work at the start of this year. He came into work one day and somebody said, "That bloke who sang Heroes has died. Quick, write a tribute." He just finished his 8th page of a tribute to Måns Zelmerlöw when somebody pointed out that it was some bloke called David Bowie who had died instead. But fortunately, he's made it up with his employers, so he can join us today from Stockholm. It is Aftonbladet's Eurovision and Entertainment correspondent, Torbjörn. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Enough said. It's sunny and David Bowie is still dead.
What a shame.
Yes.
Breaking news there. David Bowie's still dead. So, what we will be doing is discussing the final of Melodifestivalen, which will take place this Saturday at the Friends Arena in Stockholm. Just for reference, we won't be discussing the songs one by one, but I will give you the starting order. We have number 1, Panitos with Håll om mig hårt. Lisa Ajax with My Heart Wants Me Dead. Your heart isn't the only one. David Lindgren with We Are Your Tomorrow. Sara Ha with Kizungu Zungu. Oscar Sia with Human. Ace Wilder, Don't Worry. Robin Bengtsson, Constellation Prize. Molly Sandén, Universe. Boris Reiner, Put Your Love on Me. Frans, If I Were Sorry. Victoria and Save Me, and clearly saving quality for last, Samir or Victor with Bada Nakna. First, I'd like to discuss just your overall impressions of this year's Melodifestivalen. You know, the show, the presenters, and the overall standard of the songs. Obviously, we have to start with you, Tobbe.
Oh, obviously, me. Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, I would say that where I started off thinking that this might be an average year, not anything standing out. Seeing the results of the songs on Spotify now in the streaming services, there are several songs that have already made it become big hits. There are songs that has had millions of streams that are not even in the final. And with this, I must say that this year has been a success in the goal for both SVT and the record companies to be able to get songs in the competition that becomes songs that people want to listen to, mostly using their streaming services. When it comes to the hosts, I'd say that Gina Dirawi is one of my absolute favorite Swedish hostesses of all times. I think she is amazing. And I think it was also genius to bring in new co-hosts every week. They have been rejuvenating the program, the show, each week. It has been something new. And even when Charlotte Perrelli was there, she had something that was different than the week before, even though she was she's a Schlager queen and brings all that classic parts in it. But overall, I'm just looking forward to seeing the show finale this weekend and to see what William Spets can put into it.
Yes, could you tell us something about William Spets? I'll be honest, it's not a name I know. What's his background exactly?
And I've realized that Eurovision fans or Melodifestivalen fans across Europe have been like, oh, why do they put him in the final? That's so boring. This guy, he's 19 years old. He's going to be the youngest Melodifestivalen host of all times. He's a comedian who started out as a YouTuber, putting his own little shows up on YouTube, and they became viral here in Sweden. SVT signed him up a couple of years ago, and he's been rumored to do Melodifestivalen for quite some time. But since he's been underage, that hasn't been. The rumors have had it that they're actually grooming him to become the next Melodifestivalen host, because this is a guy that SVT really wants to. They want him to perform well. And they hope that the audience will love him, so that this is somebody that can grow up as an SVT host.
Thanks for the information, Torbjörn. Now I realise why I haven't heard of him, because the last time I lived in Sweden, he was 5 years old. Tobias, your overall impressions?
My overall impressions are pretty much the same as Tobbes. I must say that I think it's wonderful that the SVT has finally brought back this a sense of substance to the shows, because now that they went down in the number of entries and only have 7 songs per week, last year it became so painfully obvious that it's actually quite difficult to fill that amount of time that you save by having 1 song less. And when you do the focus on having when your focus is to make a TV show rather than a song contest, then you need content, and the content needs to be good enough. And this year has been much better, an awful lot better than the last 2 years. So that has been a success for the SVT. And of course, it's a success that the songs are so commercially successful. I must say, personally, I think that I don't want to use the word average, because that has such a negative connotation. But I think that the running order this year has been very samey. There hasn't been that amount of surprise in the lineup. There is not that song. There has been no Ranelid entry that makes my jaw drop. And I've been missing that. I've been missing that shock element among the songs, that thing that stands out and is something completely different compared to what you would have expected. And I think that could be a problem for the future. It's okay for 1 year to have only radio hits or that kind of songs. But SVT has always been very eager to have this diversity among the entries. And I think they need to get that back for next year, or people will start to find it a little bit too much of the same. That's my prediction. But overall, I think it's been a good year.
I totally agree with you there, Tobias, because what will be a problem for the next year, for the coming years, is that lots of artists that has somewhat of an older audience, that are traditionally quite popular in Melodifestivalen, has really failed this year. Might it be because their songs wasn't good enough? But it will still be really hard to attract the older artists, and that will make the diversity of the contest less interesting.
Yeah, it's there's this risk that it turns out to be this launching pad for talent show talents that they're all young. They're still very much, they haven't perhaps found their artistic vision yet, and it's very easy to just build the same kind of show number around them, but perhaps they don't have the amount of personality that would be needed to keep 28 songs feeling fresh and interesting. And so, I mean, they have a bit of, it's a success now, but they will have issues to deal with for the future, I think.
There's been talk, certainly this year, or certain articles have been written, that maybe this year represents the death of Schlager, or at least its terminal illness. Torbjörn, what do you think about that?
Well, I would say that since Christer Björkman purposely is trying to wash away the term Schlager from Melodifestivalen, because he during the years he has been having trouble finding the right artists, because they don't want to be considered as people singing the Schlager genre. And this year he might have actually succeeded a bit too well, because Schlager in Melodifestivalen is a very traditional genre in Sweden that only comes to life in Melodifestivalen, but that also generates a few hits, and there are lots of people that really like that genre, and I think that should still be in Melodifestivalen, but it needs to rejuvenate. It needs to feel younger and fresher, and the artists that can actually perform Schlagers should be given better songs in that genre, because this year the Schlager songs have not really been up to standards.
No, they really haven't. I mean, take for instance, Anna Book should be so grateful that she was disqualified, because that meant that she got some attention and a tiny hit, instead of ending at 6th place in her semi-final, which is probably what would have happened given what happened to Schlager later in the season. And I mean, the Schlager songs just haven't been good enough. Anna Book has said, for instance, that she had another song that she proposed to SVT, but they insisted that she would do this one instead, which is really weak. I mean, the song that she did in the first, well, she didn't get to do it, but she didn't get to compete with it. But the song she was supposed to sing in the first semi is a really weak Schlager. The same goes for Linda Bengtzing. I can't believe that song went through the quality control at all. And the same for After Dark. I mean, what's the point in having a drag act that doesn't have an ounce of... There's nothing that is exciting or prohibited or anything, about that. It's just so family friendly and with no sharp edges. What is the point in having it at all? I'm on Tobias. I think you are right that they have deliberately taken in weak Schlagers to try to get rid of the genre altogether, which I also think is a mistake.
Thanks very much, Tobias. Gavin, your overall impressions. Obviously, you'll probably have less to say about the scripts and the staging, but overall quality of the songs and just the show as a spectacle, what do you think?
Yeah, just touching on the Schlager points, I actually thought Christer was the best song along, and maybe that's probably the direction they need to go, but they probably just need to add more oomph to it. It's a shame Christer didn't make it, actually, because it was one of my kind of favourite kind of bubblegum pop songs in the lineup. But I think Melodifestivalen has improved from last year. It did feel very stale, and a lot of the music just felt very pastiche. It still does this year. There's a lot of influences and probably a lot of half-baked songs that just aren't quite finished. But it's nice to see, given that during the first show we were talking about Ace Wilder and Molly Sandén, but we're not going to be talking about those. We're going to be talking about Franz and maybe Victoria. And it's nice that new talent comes through. So that's quite positive. But from the entertainment point of view, even though I don't understand the language, I do think Gina is an amazing host. She seems to, from a visual point of view, she seems to be able to deliver or put far more personality across. And especially with Sarah as well. Those two work together very well on stage.
Yes.
And they would be great hosts for Eurovision. Absolutely great.
No, absolutely. I would just like to add my vote of confidence for Gina Dirawi. Attracted some criticism from certain elements in Sweden, hasn't she, Tobbe, for kind of who she is and her upbringing?
Yeah, and this is kind of scary because all through Sweden we notice more and more internet and online trolls that goes out in the open to criticize people with a non-Swedish background, and those wins are really, they are so uncomfortable and they're so scary. Each time I write an article about Gina, whatever I write, I get several emails specifying what they don't like about her, and that would be that she's a young girl and she's Muslim. I find it. I can't even put words to it because it scares me that the Swedish society is taking this turn.
I think that this is a very interesting point to stay with this thought. The change in Swedish society has been very big and it's very noticeable, and it's influencing the whole debate in Sweden, and it goes very much at odds with the image that SVT wants Europe to see of Sweden when we get to Eurovision in May. They want to show an open and intellectual and welcoming Sweden, and that's a little bit at odds with the public opinion right now, and what, as you said, celebrities who don't have a typically Swedish background, what they have to put up with these days. I'm afraid that a few of the international fans who come to Stockholm this year will be a bit surprised that maybe the air has shifted a bit compared to what they expect from Sweden.
Thank you, Tobias. I suppose an example of the face that SVT want to show to the world was that act by Sarah Dawn Finer and Gina, what was it, Hela Sveriges song, which was partly sung in Arabic, partly in Hebrew, I believe.
And also partly in our Inuit
Sami,
language,
yes.
Sami. And also in Swedish, where they sang the Swedish national anthem, intertwined with classic Swedish folk songs translated into foreign languages.
I mean, all I can say, I'm not really going to comment either on Sweden or the general situation, is just to say that Sweden is far from alone in this kind of tendency. That's just my impression. Anyway, moving on to, well, who's likely to win? Gavin, who do you think, for the first time, the running order was announced immediately after Andra Chansen was, and the winners were selected. So it was announced on stage at the end of Andra Chansen. Who would consider themselves winners and who would consider themselves losers out of the 12 finalists?
Well, it's kind of funny actually, because last year when the running order was published, the markets and the gamblers were actually kind of unsure, even though Mons was leading all the charts and all the statistics said that he was going to win. His running order position suggested that actually they were trying to favour someone else. When it's actually he cruised to such an easy lead in his semi-final that Krista felt comfortable that he could bury him in the running order and still maybe try and manufacture a closer result. I think this time, I think he knows which songs he wants to do well, and that is France and Victoria. Both of those songs, in my opinion, is Sweden's only chance of a respectable result at Eurovision. France, because it's a very understated song, but the way that the audience reacted to him shows that, I don't know, he has this intangible kind of charm that you can't quite put your finger on, but you can't help feel invested in the way that he acts out his song. And it also goes the same with Victoria. The amount of energy that she puts into a song, and when she really goes for the high notes, you really feel yourself rooting for her. I think those two songs, I think being the most contemporary as well and radio-friendly and chartable songs, I think Krista would like either of those to win. But looking at the statistics so far, the fact that Franz has been topping both the Swedish charts and the Spotify charts would indicate that he will have the televote wrapped up. It then just depends whether the juries get behind him. And my feeling is that it's between him and Victoria for the jury vote.
Okay, what about the losers in this running order, Gav?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot those. Losers.
You tend to forget losers, don't you? A very winner-oriented society. It's quite sad.
I think we're looking at... I think Lisa is going to struggle, because even though her song is, it's pretty good, it's a bit anonymous, wedged between Panetos and David. But then I also think David is a slight weakness going before Sarah Hart. So yeah, I think he's a bit anonymous there because she's, as of today, second in the charts. And he is, let me just have a quick look at my figures, he's 34th on Spotify and 49th on the actual physical chart. So he's kind of quite anonymous as well. No one seems to have invested in him since the second heat. No one's really talking about him. So I think Lisa, David are at a big disadvantage. And then also, I think Boris is in trouble right before France. And I also think the juries might not like his song quite as much. The juries tend to go for, if they're going to go for a dance song, they tend to go for something that would go well in Euroclub, let's say. And David's song would go well in Euroclub. So I can imagine Israel chucking a few points his way. So I think Boris is in slightly more danger than David, perhaps.
Okay. Tobias, would you agree that Krista Björkman wants either France or Victoria to take home the prize?
It's obvious that Krista likes Victoria since he put her... I mean, she's virtually unknown, and she was his gamble to be put last in her semi-final. Despite this, apparently he likes her. I'm not. I disagree there. I think Victoria is like 85% special effects and 15% song. I'm not impressed at all with that. I think she's good. I think she's very good, but I think she's held back by the special effect and all that, which we've seen. I mean, Azerbaijan has done it. Come on. It's like, it's not even new. And I was very puzzled by this running order, I must say. I get the feeling that Krista Björkman knows something that we don't, or that we have missed, or he knows something, or he's pulling our legs or something. Because,
What do you mean?
I'm surprised to see Samir and Victor in last place, for instance. I'm surprised to see a song like Panetos opening it. Well, okay, that's not. And then I'm surprised to see the songs that there was a lot of talk about while the semifinals were going on, like Oscar Sia, Ace Wilder, Robin Bengtsson, and Molly Sandén coming right after one another. I think that's puzzling. I don't know if that indicates something, if there's one of these songs that we have overrated or if there's one of the songs that we have completely underrated. I have no idea. But I do think Franz is the one who stands out because he's so way ahead of everyone else when it comes to being streamed on Spotify, for instance.
Yes, I mean we've talked about likely support, chart positionings, Spotify plays, etc. What's your personal opinion of France's song, Tobias?
I really like the song, and I think it's very much like a Swedish in English, of course, but still Swedish version of Kedvesem, the Hungarian entry of 2013, which is very sort of almost introverted and very minimalist. And he's not... The strange thing about Franz is that he's not really working the cameras at all. He just stands there and sings, and yet he cracks the screen. He goes through the screen and he communicates with us. And this is very rare. This is the complete opposite of the thing I was talking about before.
This is what Lena did as well.
Yeah, this kind slightly, instead of all these slightly anonymous singers that you can build a cool number around, then you have this Franz who's like a pearl in a shell who just works, and nobody can really explain why it works. It just works. So he has a lot of that. Then I need to say, I think that everyone is talking very much about what's working on Spotify and iTunes. I think it's still a very unprecise instrument to predict who will be successful in Melodifestivalen or not. I think it's still not enough people who listen regularly to the songs on Spotify to make them a really good indication. It's an indication, but not the perfect one, I'd say.
Okay. Which is sorry, just to add to that, which is usually why I prefer iTunes. Certainly the Eurovision gamblers listening, we tend to follow a site called ESC Tracker, and that monitors all of the iTunes downloads during the Eurovision rehearsal period. And for the last 2 or 3 years, it's pretty much got 1 to 5 spot on. There is always just this one song that just seems to go viral in every single country. And it gets it right. So I do think certainly iTunes and kind of the social way of tracking these songs is becoming more and more accurate.
I would say when it comes to iTunes in Sweden, less and less people are using it. So not even the record companies brag about good placing in iTunes unless that's the only thing they get. They skip talking about iTunes as soon as they get a hit in the streaming services or on the radio.
Yeah, Anna Bok made it to number 1 on iTunes in Sweden, didn't she? Yeah. Which means nothing. Can
I add to this discussion, because
of course.
When it comes to Victoria and why Christer Björkman has placed her in a very favorable starting running order, 11th place, I would also, let's just not forget that she is signed to the same management as Avicii. Some of her songwriters have been working with Avicii, and I think that for Christer, it is very important that she does well in the competition, because he wants to connect to that type of people writing for the world, for artists that are major players in the world. And with this, Victoria is unknown. Her song is rather good, but the fact that the songwriters and the management works with somebody that's huge, that makes it that I would say that's the most important reason why Christer wants it to do well. And well here might be 3rd or 4th, since she's an unknown artist. When it comes to putting Panetos first and Sanigo Victor last, I think that Christer wants the show to feel like a party. And both these songs are, I would say, none of them has to do with the top 3, of course, but both of them are party starters that will get the audience going and will have the audience cheering and applauding and dancing in their seats, and that is part of what makes a TV show exciting to look at. I also like to say something about putting Oscar Ace, Robin, and Molly right after each other. I think here he wants Molly to do fairly well, because she's working with Danny. He doesn't want. He wants. Krista wants to have a good connection with those people, but she might not even have won her semifinal. That might very well have been France. So he doesn't see her as a contender for the victory still. And the same with Ace Wilder. I don't think they consider her being a contender for the victory. But the people that probably will end up in the very, very bottom is, and here I agree with Gavin, Lisa Ajax and David Lindgren might very well be forgotten when it comes to getting points.
Yes, on the subject of two of those artists, in our previous pre-Melodifestivalen podcast, the one I chickened out of, as you probably put it, Torbjörn, all the talk was about Ace Wilder, Molly Sandén, and now not really anything like as much. Why do you think that these two artists didn't work as they have done previously?
When it comes to Molly, I would say that her song wasn't up to standard. People liked the first 2 minutes of it, and then there was no crescendo. There was no, it just died out. And when it comes to Ace Wilder, she had a cool performance with a quirky type song, the same type of song that she did the last time, but she didn't do a song that surprised anyone. It wasn't better than the last one, and Ace Wilder doesn't have a big fan base. So since she didn't amaze people the same way she did when she competed with Busy Doing Nothing, I think people has just gone like, oh, nah, let's not go there.
Yeah, she was good 2 years ago, but no, she's not one of our favourites, as it were.
But then again, you don't know these things. I mean, you never know with the international juries, for instance. I usually think this way to myself, like when I try to think what would be a good idea to send to Eurovision, you should always do what would Ukraine do? And Ukraine would do Ace Wilder. They would take the strange song that is like, is it even a song? It's like, is there a verse? Is there a chorus? It just goes on. I like it. It's one of my personal favorites. But they sort of make the package work, and it's an interesting thing to look at, and it's more visual than a song, perhaps. I would think that a few of the international juries will like Ace Wilder, and I think she might end up quite high in the ranking, at least before the televotes are counted.
Well, yeah, I think it's a jury song.
Yes, I mean, I think a lot of the international juries, they tend to be Melodifestivalen fans, and often will, from what I've seen, favour former contestants, as it were, rather than the likes of France, although I'm not sure about Samir and Victor. Gavin, we'll move on now. Who do you think will... You said before about a possible top two for the jury vote. Anyone else that will kind of mark more highly with the juries than with the general public, do you think?
Yeah, something has been kind of troubling me slightly, and is how to rate Oscar and Robin. And I think Oscar will be higher with the juries but low with the televote, because I think Robin he's top 3 on Spotify. He seems to have a lot more momentum, but I don't think his song is as instant as Oscar's. Oscar's is very visual. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more power. Whereas Robin's, I don't know. It's a bit kind of Ulrich Munther. I don't know. I think Robin is the one that will be cut short by the juries, but will probably end up coming 3rd or 4th overall, thanks to the televote. But that's just purely on the back of the momentum that he's got. And again, I still don't understand the momentum because I haven't quite warmed to the song. I don't know. Maybe Torbjörn can explain that.
Well, we can ask that in a bit. I should just point out that, for reference, that the international juries this year are from Australia, Belarus, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Cyprus, Estonia, France, Israel, Italy, Netherlands, Norway and Slovenia. Tobias, what do you think will be the big discrepancies between televoting love and jury love?
Well, again, it depends. As one of you mentioned before, that most of these juries are made up of Eurovision fans, and I must say, for me, that's weird. I think the effect you would want from the international jury is to know more what the average TV viewer or music listener out in Europe would make of the Swedish songs. The Eurovision fans often tend to like the same songs that do well in Melodifestivalen, and that makes it a little bit pointless. But I have a feeling that the very Swedish ones will struggle with the juries. I can't see a credible jury throwing points over Samir och Viktor or Panetos or even Kizungo Zungo, which has a huge momentum in Sweden right now. I just don't see the juries do that. And if they do that, it's only because they know Melodifestivalen and they like the kind of song because because they are Melodifestivalen songs. I think that Ace Wilder will be the kind of song that the juries will like because of the televisual aspects, but that the televoters won't stand out enough or in the right way for the televoters to grab it. But then I must say also that for me, it looks very much like a one-horse race, and then I have no idea who will end in second place, seriously. Because all of these songs are so similar in many ways. Most of this lineup is so similar. It could be any of them who sings well, except Lisa Ajax and David Lindgren. They are lost. But anyone else could surprise us on the night, I think. Really.
Okay, moving on actually to surprises, Torbjörn. Do you think that there will be a surprise in store, not necessarily in terms of winner, but say in the top three, for example?
Well, I'm grabbing at straws right now and really hoping for a surprise, and the fact that I still have in my heart that there might be a surprise is the fact that the Melodifestivalen app has never been used in the final. If we remember last year, it completely crashed and they had to take all the app votes out. But this year, it's going to be in there again. And you can give 5 votes to each and every of the contestants. And this means that compared to doing televoting or text voting, you don't have to choose your overall favorite. You can send 5 votes to France, but you can also be at the same time really like Victoria and send her 5 votes and 3 to Robin Bengtsson and 2 to Oscar Sia. And with that, it might even out quite a bit of the televotes might even out much more than it has the previous years. And with that, it might be the jury that actually has the final say. Because last year, Måns Zelmerlöw had about 80 or if it was 78 more points than the second, the people's second favorite. But if it evens out, so that the top 3 shares much more of the votes, that might make the competition a bit more exciting again.
Well, that would be absolutely great, certainly.
Yes, please.
Pardon?
That was me just saying yes, please. I want it to be exciting.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were swearing at me again.
No.
Okay, finally, what we will do is just one sentence. We'll go round the table. Who will win? Gavin.
France. Victoria second.
Tobias.
Well, France.
And finally, Torbjörn.
My favorite this year, I think it is Oscar Sia, but he won't win. But I hope that he will make it into top 3, where France will be the winner, and who the F else, I have no idea, is going to be in there.
Fair enough. Personally, I'll go for a slightly different prediction. A couple of predictions. France will break down in tears in the final once he realises that his hero, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, isn't watching. And finally, because I like my historical precedents, the last year that Sweden hosted the contest, the winner came from Andra Chansen, Ruben Stjernberg. So obviously everything is set up to crown Samir and Victor winners of Melodifestivalen this year. And I would like that to happen just to see Tobias's reaction on Twitter and Facebook.
Do you want it now? I can tell you.
I don't think we can publish it.
Well, I will make it. I will tone it down and make it family friendly. But actually, given the great advantage that Sweden has now, and that host countries always have but don't always take, is that you already won. You already have everyone's attention. Send in something not to win, but to make a statement. And Samir and Victor would be a statement, I can say that. And, you know, musically, they're not my favorites. I would be lying. I would be selling my soul if I said so. But really, this year, if Sweden would want to send Samir and Victor to represent them on home ground, way to go, boys. I mean, good luck. Good luck. They'll need it, but good luck.
Can I add something?
Yes, of course.
Because when it comes to me and Melodifestivalen, I don't care if I like the winning song, but I want the artist or the act to be interesting to follow and cover during Eurovision. And with that, I would go for Oscar Sia, Molly Sandén, or Samir och Victor as my entries this year, with Panetos as a maybe. And the rest, no.
Yes.
No, because I mean, Frans. What do you do with Frans? I mean, from a newspaper point of view, I mean, you'll have to be a little bit delicate with him. I mean, he's very young, and he's a relative newcomer and everything. How do you squeeze interesting stories out of him for 10 days?
Yeah, thank God it's in Sweden, because we are going to cover the competition in another way than just covering our Swedish entry.
Yes, and another reason actually I want Samir and Victor to win, simply because we will find out if their English is as good as their singing voices. that will be fun. Anyway.
I have a guess. I have a prediction there, yes, but I'll save that until May. Yeah.
Okay, that will be great.
Samir actually prefers not to do interviews in English because he understands what people says, but he's afraid of talking himself. So Victor will be the one doing all the interviews in English.
Okay, well, thank you very much to our guests for discussing this, and please tune in on Saturday to ESCtips to watch what our experts think will be the coronation of 17-year-old France. Also, please tune in April for our series of podcasts about the entrants for this year's Eurovision Song Contest. All that remains for me to do is to thank so much our three special guests. Gav, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting.
Tobias, always a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Torbjörn. I think this is the time I've tried to interrupt you the least. I hope I succeeded in that.
And thank you, Andy. But I am looking forward to further podcasts where we can put up a bit more of a fight, right?
Oh, absolutely. We'll have to make sure that you're certainly on one of the Eurovision ones.
That could be wonderful. And I mean, Andy, if you're having problem with the English, we could always ask Samir if he would be willing to take your place.
That wouldn't at all be an insult. Thank you very much, Tobias. So, all I've got left to do is thank you all for listening. Tune back in April. This is Andy Redfern saying goodbye. Goodbye.
ESCtips.com will return with another show soon. In the meantime, show us some love by following us and sharing this podcast with your Facebook and Twitter friends.